Now, yesterday I brought you some disturbing news from the French city of Dijon. As you've seen here and probably nowhere else, there are gang clashes in the capital of Burgundy, and they've run out of control with bashings, fires and gunshots. They continued again last night with reports revealing that Chechen refugees from around Europe have descended on the city to get revenge against local North African gangs after a bashing that sparked the trouble. Also descending on the town now, or the small city I should say, after 4 days of this, are French riot police with their reinforcements. I promised you we'd find out more about this, and I caught up with Foreign Affairs expert Keith Suter earlier today and asked him what was behind the strife.
So it's obviously forms of gang warfare between the people of Chechen origin. So Chechnya is back in the old Russian Empire, and a result of a couple of wars 2 decades ago, a lot of people fled and were given sanctuary in France. So the people we're talking about are the asylum seekers who've come in, or their children who've come in from Chechnya. They're fighting it out with local gangs. We're not sure whether it's a dispute over drugs. There may obviously be an element of ethnic tension there as well. And clearly it's taken the French by surprise. Dijon is a very nice little city. It's about 150,000 people, well known really for its food. And so it's a very tranquil place. So they've been really shaken by just how this has flared up so quickly, and the way in which, of course, through social media, the gangs have been able to call in reinforcements, so to speak, from other parts of eastern France. So this is the worry for the French government. And it comes on top of the coronavirus crisis, a stagnant economy, etc. So there are a lot of things in the mix now.
Yeah, you mentioned the possibility of ethnic tensions. Both these groups of refugees, the North African refugees that are reported to be the local gangs, and the Chechen refugees tend to be Muslims, so it's not overtly religious, but there could be ethnic tensions there. We know, of course, that France is no stranger to violent protests and riots. When we talk about what's happening in the US over the past couple of weeks, a lot of people have harked back to 1968. Of course, there was a lot of strife in France in 1968 too. Is there any sense that there's this political element, this racial discrimination and political element in Dijon, or is it something completely separate?
I think it's really a question of a localised system of gangs who are just fighting each other. Back in 1968, I lived through that period in 1968, so saw the CRS in action. This is the very strong-arm police force that the French had for riot control. That was much more politically motivated. It was against the government of the time, with a much more extreme left-wing agenda. This time we're seeing old-fashioned ethnic groups, turf disputes over drugs, etc. It's a very different sort of thing, but what is worrying is the speed with which this situation has escalated, and the difficulty for the French authorities in being able to maintain control of the situation.
OK, something else that's very worrying is the clashing between China and India, deadly clashes in recent days. Of course, they share a couple of borders, more than just a border, but a line of actual control, a disputed territory, and that's where we've seen this flashpoint. Should we be deeply worried about this, or is this the sort of tension that is always going to be ongoing?
Well, it's tension that's ongoing, but of course it's tension that could easily spill over into a conflict. China and India did have a war back in 1962. So the area which is causing all the concern is Kashmir, which is broadly divided between Pakistan and India. That goes back to the partition of India when the British left. But the northeast corner is claimed by China. So that area is disputed. China, of course, is improving its relations with Pakistan, and so they are managing to maintain good contacts between China and Pakistan, which adds to Indian paranoia. India, remember, is getting ready to become a superpower in the 21st century. It sees its main rival as being China. China, obviously, in 2049 thinks it's going to be the #1 country, having overtaken the United States. So the next great power rivalry will be between India and China. So these are skirmishings that are going on at the moment. You know, India acquired nuclear weapons, not because it was worried about Pakistan's nuclear weapons, but because it sees itself as getting lined up against China. That's where the big dispute will be. From Australia's point of view, this is a great concern, any dispute between India and China. China is our major trading partner at the moment, and we would like to make more trade with India. And so what we're seeking to do, therefore, or from an Australian point of view, we'd love to see this conflict hosed down. Part of the problem is the conflict takes place in an area which has got disputed borders. You refer to this line of actual control, but when you're on the ground, it's actually very difficult to work out where that line actually falls. And so there's plenty of scope there for border disputes between both governments.
And just briefly, Keith, we don't hear a lot from the Foreign Minister, Marise Payne, but she made quite a strong speech last night that was targeting China's aggression, if you like.
Yes, China is undergoing a reinvention. You know, the old idea from Deng Xiaoping was that you just go very quietly in your economic growth. PRC, People's Republic of China, means please remain calm. The current president, President Xi, is becoming much more aggressive, and we've yet to work out why is he taking such a more upfront situation, not only in the South China Sea, but in a number of other areas as well. And so this is of a concern to us because accidents can always occur when you have these flashpoints. The Australian government is making it quite clear that it is concerned about what's going on inside China and would obviously prefer China to go back to where it was. Please remain calm.
Yeah, you can say that again. Thanks very much, Keith. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, as we heard there are long-running tensions here. There was a war 57 years ago, but there's no doubt in India, in the Indian media, about how they feel about all of this.
We will no longer back down. This is not the India of 1962. India will build infrastructure on its side of the LAC. It will ensure that its own interests are protected. This is not Nepal, this is not Pakistan, this is not Sri Lanka, this is India, that is Bharat. We will stand toe to toe and we will pull your eyes out if it comes to it.
Pull your eyes out. Reassuring, isn't it? Still, at least you know the Indian media is on India's side. In this country, whenever a country takes on or criticises Australia, I always wonder whose side the media are on.